I usually wait later into the day to do this video, but I've got a wedding to go to. I'm literally dressed for it, so I've got to bang this out really quickly, guys. We're going through every matchup to find the must-start and sit running backs for Week 10, and I'm one of the only fantasy YouTubers working on it Saturday, so make sure to go down there, drop a like in the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, the first matchup, I'm lucky. It's pretty easy. Atlanta at Indianapolis. You obviously fire both these guys up. The irony is, I've discussed this matchup a bunch this week, how I think it could go very weird because it's an overseas type of game, but these are the two of the top 3 to 5 running backs in fantasy on the entirety of the season. You don't mess with benching them. Indianapolis doesn't have another viable fantasy back, and I would say this: you can play Tyler Algier not because of Bijan Robinson's lack of workload. You can play Tyler Algier because he gets involved on a pretty much weekly basis at this point. So Tyler Algier, I do consider a relatively mid-end flex option that I would consider to play over wide receivers like Jerry Jeudy and Darnell Mooney, for example. The Cleveland Browns at the New York Jets is our next matchup, and I think Quinshon Judkins is a really good start this week. The problem that Judkins is going to have moving forward is that anytime he plays a competent defense, they're just going to know we got to stop the run, stack the box, and then that's it. And the defenses he's played that understand this, that's when Judkins has had his bad games. But the Jets are too incompetent and too talent deprived to stop Quinshon Judkins this week. He's must start. And then Breece Hall is a relatively decent flex, mostly because I don't know what to expect from him this week. I really think that there's two sides of this coin. One side being it's a contract year, he's going to continue to play his butt off. And number two, this guy knows I've got value around the league. There was teams like the Chiefs trying to trade for me, so I'm not going to put myself in harm's way too many more times this year and risk getting injured. I think either one could play out, so I'm going to play Breece Hall, of course, in this one, but not as a must-start against this front seven. And then I would say the other running backs in this one, Isaiah Davis may be the other viable option. I'm going to go ahead and sit him, along with obviously both Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. The New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers is our next matchup. Rico Dowdle ride the freaking lightning, baby. This guy is a true revelation for fantasy teams this year. You just continue to ride that wave against the Saints defense. Should be an excellent matchup. And then the Saints side of the ball, Alvin Kamara, as of the time of this filming, is a true questionable. Either way, not a must start. This guy has not been good this year. Devin Neal is getting more involved as well. And I would say Chuba Hubbard is playable just because I think it could be a blowout, which could open up the backfield a little bit more for someone like Chuba Hubbard. The New England Patriots at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is our next matchup here. And listen, I think that they're both solid plays, Travion and Rachaad White. They're actually both back-to-back in my rankings. And those of you who have a premium subscription at fsroundup.com, my site, you understand exactly where these two guys are ranked. The reason I'll prefer Travion is because I do think that he's the better back overall with more explosion ability. Rachaad White, though, on an offense that I think will score coming out of the bye week. So I think they're both high upside flex options that you want to play with Ramondre Stevenson out. But Terrell Jennings is every bit as flexible as someone like Travion Henderson because he was involved last week. Now, if you look over at fsroundup.com, the snap counts and the amount of just opportunities, that definitely favored Travion. That's why I definitely prefer Travion this week, and he looked good on his work, so I'll go Travion, but I think Terrell Jennings is absolutely playable. And then I would say Sean Tucker is definitely in play if he gets a goal line opportunity, which he may or may not get on a weekly basis depending on what the situation is at the goal line and how generous they basically are going to feel for him. But I want to go back to these New England running backs because I think there's an argument to be made for both of these guys. So I'm going to go to fsroundup.com, start a start-sit poll for Week 10 for these two guys. I'm going to look up Travion Henderson, go to chat, then go to start a poll for Week 10, and I'm going to add Terrell Jennings, and you need to go vote on this one right here. I need your vote on this one. Give me it, honestly, don't sugarcoat it or anything, what you would do, because it's free to vote and free to start your own poll. But if you want access to my top 250 rankings on a weekly basis, the automatic waiver wire tool, the comparison feature, and the league sync up feature, that is for $6 a month. League winning features for $6 a month. And if you want the ultimate team breakdown from me, very detailed, I take a lot of time on these. A lot of people have gotten them from me this year and been very happy with the result. And now is the time to get a team breakdown before the playoffs start. So go to fsroundup.com, get your team breakdown, send me an email of your team, and we'll get working on those very soon as well. The Baltimore Ravens at the Minnesota Vikings is our next matchup, and I think that Derrick Henry is a really good play. I think Derrick Henry's about to go on a really good run. I actually just traded for him in a dynasty league because I want to compete with Derrick Henry on my team. Listen, Minnesota's defense is great, but the bottom line is, I've always said this. First of all, a player like Henry or a player like Lamar, matchup doesn't really matter. And if they're going to win the game, that's when they bleed the clock with Derrick Henry, and that's where you see him at his best. If they're losing the game, yeah, it's a problem because he can't get downhill and just run the clock out. But if they're winning, which I expect them to do against the Vikings, that's when I expect Derrick Henry to have a good game. And then I would say Aaron Jones, if he plays, is the better play than Jordan Mason because game script, I think, allows them to throw the ball more to Aaron Jones. And Jordan Mason, there were some comments made by Kevin O'Connell basically kind of saying, yeah, when we got Aaron Jones back, we got something back that we had just been missing. Kind of a shot at Jordan Mason. So I do think, absolutely, right now, Aaron Jones is the preferred back, either game script, but I do still think that in this game script, it definitely favors Aaron Jones. And I'm going to go ahead, bench the rest of the Ravens running backs. The Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins this week, and I think that James Cook, listen, this one's easy now because we know James Cook is going to play. James Cook and Devon Achane, you put them out there. For the record, if James Cook wasn't going to go, I would have picked Ray Davis to play this one. And the reason why is because Ray Davis is more of the carry-heavy back, and especially in a blowout game, that's when you see Ray Davis get more opportunities, and I think they will beat the Miami Dolphins pretty easily. So I do expect Ray Davis to be the better fantasy play between the two guys if either of them had outlook that was actually playable, but neither of those guys are playable, and Ollie Gordon is not playable either. The New York Giants at the Chicago Bears is our next matchup, and I think that I had to do some soul searching. I had to drop Kyle Monangai in my rankings on this one. I wanted to put him in must start so bad. I chose to downrank him only because I actually had to look at it and say, listen, DeAndre Swift, if he comes back, where do I really want him? I still like him though. I have him one spot over Swift still, and there's a new development. DeAndre Swift missed Friday's practice. Now, on top of that groin tag that he's had throughout the last several weeks, he had a personal issue, and that was mainly the reason he missed Friday's practice. Now, Ben Johnson said he's probably going to play, but he also said we're going to ride the hot hand, and Kyle Monangai's done great for us. Kind of indicating to me that Monangai is going to be the lead back in Chicago. That's why I still prefer him if Swift plays, but I definitely ranked him down a couple spots. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a high-end flex option that I actually am still going to choose to play over Travion Henderson, to be honest with you. But Swift is definitely a guy that I would want to play over Henderson as well. And then the Giants running backs, they're also one spot difference. I prefer Singletary just because he was getting the workload, and that's it. Neither one of these guys has juice. Tyron Tracy is a big disappointment to me. And the reality is the matchup should allow for one of these guys to do well, but if it's going to continue to be a split, it's not going to be a good situation for fantasy football. The Jacksonville Jaguars at the Houston Texans, and I don't love either of these options, to be honest with you. Travis Etienne in this matchup against Houston, in Houston, not good. I don't really like the opportunity here. Bashal Tuten and LaQuint Allen also have been more involved as well, so I do worry about his upside in this matchup. I don't love this one for sure, but then I look at the Woody Marks side, and I don't love his opportunity particularly well either because he's still sharing the backfield with Nick Chubb. Now, he's got an easier matchup, so I'm kind of more inclined by a lot to play Nick Chubb less than I would play Woody Marks, but Woody Marks is not a guy that I think is taking the reins yet. And they just haven't proven that to be the case. Woody Marks is the better running back in most situations for fantasy over Nick Chubb, but they're both continuing to be playable. And I get it. The Jacksonville running backs, they came out, they did some stuff last week. I'm going to go ahead and put them on the bench against a really tough divisional opponent. The Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks, and this is a mess over here. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, I would prefer them because of the fact that they're on the better offense. And I'll stick with what I've been saying all along with with Kenneth, I'll continue to play him in the split backfield over Charbonnet because he has the big play upside and he's their open field running back. The only time Charbonnet has real fantasy value is if he gets in the end zone at the goal line. That's the only time. So I'll continue to play Kenneth over Sharp, but I'll play Sharp over the two Arizona backs because it's a brutal matchup. Bam Knight and Imari DiMercado, one spot difference in the rankings. You could rank them however you want to because they're both going to get opportunities, but I don't think either is going to be particularly good against this divisional opponent right here, which is a brutal matchup. The Detroit Lions at the Washington Commanders also pretty relatively simple. I mean, you play Jahmyr Gibbs, you play Dave Montgomery in a lot of situations. I think he's a high upside flex. And I would say on the Washington side, it's just a crapshoot. I mean, you really want to stay away from these guys if at all possible. I would say Chris Rodriguez is the best option because of the fact he's been better on workload than Bill Krosky. Bill Krosky has just not been very good from a efficiency perspective, and I think McNichols is in play this week too. They're going to be losing this game pretty early, and I would say they'll be down for the majority of it, so they'll continue to check the ball down to Jeremy McNichols, particularly on third downs. I think he's very viable as an option in the mid-tier zone, just like the rest of these two guys are as well. The Los Angeles Rams at the San Francisco 49ers, and you obviously play your two lead backs. Christian McCaffrey has been fantastic. You play him, and Kyron Williams, you play him as well. Blake Corum, though, very much in play. I would say he's actually above Tyler Algier because Tyler Algier hasn't been as good on a per-touch basis as Blake Corum has. I think Blake Corum, there's a lot of merit to play him if you're in desperate need because of bye weeks and injuries. I don't have a problem playing him in a 14-man league with just two flex. I think he's actually a pretty solid start. So I do think in that matchup, especially against the 49ers defense, which is throwing randos out there, you could play Blake Corum. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Los Angeles Chargers, Sunday Night Football. I think that the Steelers are going to lose, and I've been saying this all week. I think they will lose and be in a negative game script, which makes me like Kamani Vidal. I don't love him as the best must start or anything like that. High-end flex, though. And I'm putting him in my personal lineups where I have him because I have a lot of confidence in the game script going his way this week. I think the Steelers' run defense doesn't look as good as they sometimes have against weekly opponents. I do think Vidal is the best option. And Jaylen Warren definitely is a high-end flex too. I mean, this guy has been good on a per-touch basis this year. He's been their lead back. And I would say if you really wanted to, Kenneth Gainwell is flexible, but I wouldn't play Jarrett Patterson, and I wouldn't play any of the other Chargers running backs, whoever gets the ball other than Kamani Vidal. I do think that Kamani Vidal is clearly the best back, and then I would say Jaylen Warren is the second best, and Kenneth Walker can be played in very deep formats. The Philadelphia Eagles at the Green Bay Packers. Saquon, Josh Jacobs, you fire them both up. And really, it's that simple. Neither one of these guys have backs in the backfield that are viable to even think about. So let me know what your running back room looks like in Week 10. And if you want to see the full top 30 running back rankings for this week, click on this video right here.